Nobody had been to the property in 11 years. That was what the attorney told Ray Castillo when he called to confirm the inheritance. The property had sat untouched since Ray's great-uncle Ernesto died in 2013, and the estate had been tied up in a probate dispute between two of Ernesto's surviving children ever since. The dispute had finally resolved the previous spring. Both children had declined the property. It had passed by default to the next eligible heir, which turned out to be Ray. Ray was 52, former Army, and had not known Ernesto well. He had met him 4 times as a child at family gatherings in Albuquerque, remembered a tall, quiet man who smoked a pipe and did not say much and had a way of looking at things that suggested he was thinking about something entirely different from whatever conversation was happening around him. The property was 80 acres of high desert in Torrance County, New Mexico. The attorney described it as remote. He used that word twice, which Ray took as a warning. Ray drove down from Santa Fe on a Thursday with his dog Ghost and no particular plan. Ghost was a Czechoslovakian wolfdog, gray and pale-eyed, and had been with Ray since he left the service 7 years ago. He was not a dog that most people were comfortable around, which suited Ray, who was not a person most people were comfortable around either. They had an understanding that did not require much discussion. The property was off a county road 40 minutes east of Estancia. The access track had not been maintained in over a decade, and Ray drove it slowly in 4-wheel drive, the scrub brush scraping the undercarriage of the truck, Ghost sitting straight in the passenger seat, watching the desert move past the window. The structure on the property was a single-room adobe, maybe 600 square feet, built sometime in the 50s, and added to twice since then, in ways that were visible from the outside. Roof intact, walls solid, windows boarded. A stone-lined well 20 feet from the front door that Ray dropped a rock into and listened to and concluded was dry. He unboarded one window to let light in, rolled out his sleeping bag on the adobe floor, and spent the first evening sitting in the truck bed, watching the desert go dark around him. Ghost explored the property until the light was gone, and then came and sat in the truck bed beside Ray, and they watched the stars come out together, which in Torrance County in October meant a significant number of stars. Ray had no strong feelings about the property yet. It was land. It was his by a chain of circumstances he had not anticipated. He would figure out what he thought about it once he had walked it. He walked it the next morning, all 80 acres, which took most of the day in that terrain. The land was high desert scrub, pinon and juniper on the upper portions, bare caliche flats toward the southern boundary, an arroyo running northwest to southeast that was dry now but showed evidence of seasonal flow. The eastern boundary ran along the base of a low mesa. The western boundary was open desert, the boundary markers old and in some cases missing. Ghost moved through the property the way he moved through everything, which was efficiently and without wasted motion. He checked the arroyo first, then the mesa base, then worked back through the scrub in a pattern that covered the ground systematically. Ray was watching him work the northwest corner of the property, near where the arroyo turned, when Ghost stopped. Not the way a dog stops when it hears something, the way a dog stops when it smells something specific, something it recognizes with its whole body going still and its nose working steadily at a particular point in the earth. The spot was at the base of a large pinon tree on the uphill side, where the roots had lifted the surface soil slightly over the years. Ghost stood at it for a long time. Ray crouched beside him and looked at the ground and saw nothing that distinguished it from the surrounding earth. He pulled Ghost away, and they continued the walk. But Ghost went back to that spot before they returned to the adobe that evening. He stood over it for several minutes, nose working, then came away when Ray called him. Ray ate his dinner and thought about it. Ghost was not a dog who performed. He did not do things for attention or reward in the way some dogs did. If he was returning to that spot, it was because something was there. Ray drove to Estancia the following morning, bought a folding shovel at the hardware store, and drove back. He started digging at the base of the pinon on the uphill side where Ghost had been standing. The desert soil in that spot was harder than he expected and slower going. He worked carefully, going down a foot at a time, checking what came up. At 18 inches, his shovel turned up something that rang against the metal blade with a sound that was not rock. He set the shovel aside and worked with his hands. It was a canvas equipment roll, heavily waxed, the kind used for surveying instruments, tied with leather straps that had dried and cracked but held. He worked it free from the soil and carried it to a flat rock near the arroyo and set it down. Ghost sat across from him and watched. Ray untied the straps and unrolled the canvas. Inside, protected by the waxed canvas and the dry desert air, were 3 things: a surveying compass in a leather case, the kind used for property boundary work, dated by the manufacturer's mark to the 1960s, a folded paper document in a waxed paper sleeve, and a small leather notebook, the kind you could buy at any hardware store, with a clasp that had kept it shut and reasonably dry. Ray opened the document first. It was a mining claim, filed with the New Mexico State Land Office in 1967 under the name Ernesto Castillo. The claim described a placer gold deposit along the northwest drainage of the property, specifically in and around the arroyo. The claim coordinates matched the northwest corner of the property where Ghost had been standing. It had been properly filed, the stamp and number visible at the top of the document, and there was no notation indicating it had ever been abandoned or relinquished. Ray sat with that for a moment. Then he opened the notebook. Ernesto had used it as a field log. The entries started in 1966 and ran through 1971. Each entry was dated and described what Ernesto had found in the arroyo drainage during his surveys. The early entries were exploratory. By late 1967, they were specific. Ernesto had found alluvial gold deposits in the northwest arroyo, small but consistent, and had documented their location with the surveying compass and hand-drawn maps on the notebook pages. The final entry was dated March 1971. It was brief. Ernesto had written that he had spoken with a man from a mining company out of Albuquerque who had expressed interest in the deposit. He had written that he did not trust the man and did not intend to proceed with a sale at that time. He had written that he was securing the documents until he decided what to do. Then nothing. 50 years of nothing, while the canvas roll sat under the roots of a pinon tree, and the family fought over the property and declined it, and it passed through probate and ended up in the hands of a great-nephew who had met Ernesto 4 times and remembered a tall, quiet man who looked like he was always thinking about something else. Ray closed the notebook and looked out at the arroyo. Ghost came and sat beside him. The desert was completely quiet, in the way the desert is quiet, which is not the absence of sound, but a particular quality of stillness that has its own presence. Ray drove to Albuquerque the next morning. He found a mining and mineral rights attorney named David Archuleta through the New Mexico State Bar Referral Service. David had a small office near the university and a specialty in public land mineral claims that he had been practicing for 23 years. He looked at the mining claim document and the field notebook for a long time before he said anything. Then he said, "This claim is still active." Ray asked how that was possible after 50 years. David explained that under the federal mining law of 1872, which still governed placer gold claims on certain land categories in New Mexico, a properly filed claim remained active as long as the annual assessment work requirements had been met, or a maintenance fee had been paid. He pulled the state land office records on his computer. Ernesto had paid the annual maintenance fee every year from 1967 until his death in 2013. After 2013, the fee had lapsed, but the claim had not been formally abandoned. David said the lapsed maintenance fees could be brought current. The claim could be reinstated. The deposit was still there if Ernesto's field notes were accurate, and field notes kept in that kind of detail by someone who knew what they were doing were generally accurate. Ray asked what the deposit was worth. David said he could not answer that without a current geological assessment, but that alluvial gold deposits in that part of New Mexico had historically been viable at small to medium commercial scale. He could refer Ray to a geological survey firm in Santa Fe that could assess the arroyo drainage and give a current estimate. Ray said he wanted to do that. The assessment took 3 weeks. The firm sent 2 geologists who spent 4 days on the property with equipment that Ghost regarded with deep suspicion, and Ray had to keep him at a distance from on several occasions. Their report came back the following month. The deposit was real, smaller than what a large mining operation would want, but well within range for a junior mining company or a royalty arrangement with a larger operator. The estimated recoverable value, based on current gold prices and the deposit's size and accessibility, was between $400,000 and $600,000, depending on extraction method. David negotiated a royalty agreement with a junior mining company out of Colorado that had been looking for exactly this kind of deposit in the region. The agreement gave Ray 30% of the gross proceeds from any extraction, with no upfront cost to him and no obligation to sell the property. The first royalty payment came 14 months after Ray had driven down the access track with Ghost and no particular plan. He used it to fix the adobe, properly this time, with a contractor who knew adobe construction, a new roof, functional windows, a rainwater collection system for the dry well. It took most of the summer, and when it was done, the structure looked like something a person could live in indefinitely, which was what Ray had been deciding, without fully admitting it, since about the 3rd week. He moved down from Santa Fe in the fall. He did not make a large event of it. He packed what he needed, gave up the Santa Fe apartment, and drove the truck down the access track one last time, with Ghost in the passenger seat. He had a neighbor, a rancher named Dolores, who ran cattle on the adjacent property to the south, who brought him a pot of green chili stew the week he moved in, and told him directly that she had been watching that adobe sit empty for 11 years and was glad someone was finally in it. She was 70 and had no patience for indirectness, which Ray respected. I asked her if she had known Ernesto. She said she had known him well. She said he was a man who kept his own counsel and had a good eye for land, and did not trust easily, but was worth trusting once he did. She said he had always believed the arroyo drainage held something valuable, and that it was a shame he had never done anything with it. Ray said he had done something with it. He had hidden it carefully and waited for the right person to find it. Dolores considered that for a moment. Then She said that sounded like Ernesto. Ghost lived the way working dogs live when they finally have the right territory. The 80 acres suited him in a way the Santa Fe apartment never had. He ran the arroyo drainage every morning, checked the mesa base, patrolled the perimeter fence, and returned to the adobe satisfied with his findings. He had a specific rock near the northwest corner, flat and sun-warmed by midday, where he liked to lie in the afternoon and watch the desert. It was approximately 20 feet from the pinon tree. He never dug there again. He had done what he came to do. Everything after that was just living on land that had been waiting for someone to pay attention to it, which was finally, after 11 years and one right person and a dog with a better nose than most, exactly what was happening. Every story on this channel starts the same way: a veteran and his dog, and something the dog knew before the man did. New story next week. Subscribe if you want to be here when it drops.